Welcome back to the Middle Eight Football Podcast, the fastest 8 minutes in sports. I'm your host, Joe Burks. Let's get into week 6 of NFL action, breaking it down, starting off with our MVP ladder, the top 6 contenders for the NFL MVP award that we go through every single week, updating weekly, starting off our top dog. New guy this week, Baker Mayfield. This dude has been balling out. We're going to get into that later in the episode, but Baker Mayfield has been one of the best quarterbacks in football, undisputedly, over the past couple of weeks, leading several fourth quarter comebacks and a good win against a division leading San Francisco 49er team on Sunday. Josh Allen's at number 2, pretty much just because he hasn't played this week. He's going to play tonight. This is being filmed on Monday, if you don't know. If he goes insane against the Falcons, he absolutely can move back up to number 1. Dak Prescott, who's been great. The Cowboys' offense is amazing, and their defense is horrible. Drake May, who has just emerged into a fantastic NFL quarterback. Jonathan Taylor, the best running back in football. It's not close right now, in my opinion. And then Justin Herbert at the 6th spot. He had a great week this week. Chargers win. First off, let's hop into one of the worst games of the week. We're going to go for that one first because a huge piece of news just came out minutes before this podcast was filmed. Head coach Brian Callahan of the Tennessee Titans has been fired after the team's 1-5 start to the season. It was pretty obvious this was coming. I wasn't sure when exactly. I didn't think it would be this early in the season, but Callahan has been horrible, so it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, you could see there was a quote after the game from Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. He said this was one of the team's worst weeks of practice, and that they came out flat on Thursday. Brian Callahan was 4-19 in his tenure with the team, and something that kind of made me mad after the game that he said. Callahan in his post-game presser said, "I am incredibly discouraged by the outcome. Everyone is a part of it, including Cam Ward, the team's first overall pick at quarterback." That seemed a little unnecessary to me. I think we already know that Cam Ward is a part of the loss, but that's also not even considering that Cam Ward was the only reason that they won last week against Arizona. That and Arizona's horrible mistakes. But the offensive line allowed Cam Ward to be destroyed, but he also made some mistakes of his own. Cam Ward lost multiple fumbles. You can't do that and expect to win a football game. As far as the Raiders go, they get the win, which is cool, but I really don't see them sniffing the playoffs this year. We have Green Bay versus Cincinnati. Green Bay continues to be one of the most perplexing teams in football for me, but their defense remains strong. They've only allowed 20-plus points one time this year. Joe Flacco, quarterback of the Bengals, was traded midweek and looked solid after only having like half the week to prepare for the team's game against Green Bay. He tossed 2 touchdowns and, more importantly, 0 interceptions in the team's loss. Tampa Bay versus San Francisco. The Buccaneers get the win in a clash between division leaders. In my opinion, Baker Mayfield's the MVP right now. Amazing performance. Without Bucky Irving, without Mike Evans. Egbuka got hurt midway through the game with a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin was out before the game. But Baker Mayfield still put the team on his back with 256 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. As far as San Francisco goes, I'm impressed that Kyle Shanahan kept them in this with all the injuries on both sides of the ball. It's been horrible, and it just keeps getting worse. Because linebacker Fred Warner, arguably the team's best player on either side of the ball, he dislocated and fractured his ankle. He's out for the year. Just a devastating injury for one of the league's best defensive playmakers. Next, we have the Colts versus the Cardinals. Indianapolis locks up a win to go to 5-1. However, they nearly dropped this game to their former quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who was leading the Cardinals while Kyler Murray was out this week. The Colts defense comes up strong in the Cardinals' final drive, stopping them, but you could tell Indianapolis was missing their top couple cornerbacks all game. No Charvarius Ward. He got a concussion in pre-game warm-ups. Overall, Cardinals didn't look bad with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. However, they do lose, I think, their 4th game in a row. Next up, we have maybe the best game of the week. The Chargers versus the Dolphins. Chargers come out with a close win, 29-27. Tua Tagovailoa threw 3 interceptions in this game, one of which wasn't his fault. It was balled off the hands of Jalen Waddle, who should have come down with that catch. Miami is now 1-5 with little to no hope to get into the playoffs at this point. As far as the Chargers go, they needed this win after 2 straight losses. They rebound. Herbert was great, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and that 42-yard catch and run by wide receiver Ladd McConkey won the team the game. Herbert found him underneath, and he took it for 42 yards, putting the Chargers in field goal range when they had less than a minute to work with after the Dolphins' go-ahead touchdown. Cameron Dicker buries the field goal for the win, and the Dolphins come out with 5 seconds left, looking for a miracle, and Tua throws another interception. Surprise. But the Dolphins' defense continues to not be able to stop the run at all, allowing 168.5 rushing yards per game so far this season. We have the Patriots versus the Saints. Drake May playing like one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in football over the past couple weeks. He had 261 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Drake May had 2 massive throws called back for some really horrible pass interference calls on the Patriots offensively, but it doesn't end up mattering. The Patriots still end up winning this game 25-19. The Patriots rushing offense is currently averaging under 100 yards per game, and May was the leading rusher on Sunday. They need to get that figured out. But a surprisingly good game and a good quarterback matchup. Rattler was solid as well for the Saints. But we can move on to Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. Not a ton to talk about here. Just a terrible game. I don't know how it lasted so long. This game lasted like 3.5 hours in real time. Insane to me. But this game sucked. It was a bad game. Cleveland's pass catchers really let Dylan Gabriel down. They were dropping his passes constantly, and he only averaged 4.3 yards per attempt. Granted, he did have over 50 attempts, but Steelers look solid. Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf definitely have some solid chemistry. One of the most underrated duos, I think, right now. Panthers versus Cowboys. Panthers get a really nice win. They're starting to get hot, it seems, as they win 30-27 over the Dallas Cowboys. This is what I've been worried about. This is what I've been talking about the past couple weeks. This Cowboys defense is, it's looking really bad, which we know, but I'm worried it's going to keep them out of playoff contention if they keep allowing 30 points a game. I mean, it's rough. And they have one of the best offenses in football, maybe the best offense in football, but this defense is holding them back, and it's becoming ridiculous now. Dak Prescott and George Pickens, even with the absence of CeeDee Lamb, this passing offense looks great. But the Panthers looked good on offense. Bryce Young was really clutch, had 3 touchdowns, threw a strike to Hunter Renfrow on 4th and 4 to keep the final drive alive, leading to that game-winning field goal. Rico Dowdle, the former backup running back, now I'm sure it's going to be a committee when Chuba Hubbard returns. But he puts up over 200 yards from scrimmage for the second week in a row. This time against his former team, it was obvious this was a revenge game for him. He told them to buckle up before he got there, and it seems that this defense was fairly unbuckled. Obviously, the Panthers have had the privilege of going against the Miami Dolphins and Dallas Cowboys the last 2 weeks, 2 of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. But nonetheless, I am excited for Carolina. I'm glad to see them doing well and stacking up these wins. Seattle versus Jacksonville. Seahawks stack up another win. An unreal game from Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver for Seattle. 162 yards and a touchdown. He is entering top 5 territory as far as wide receivers go. He was torching Jacksonville defensive backs all day, routing them up. 7 sacks for the Seattle defense helps them get past Jacksonville. They've looked good on both sides of the ball. As far as Trevor Lawrence goes, quarterback for the Jaguars, he looked awesome against Kansas City in that Monday night game. I believe it was Monday night. But follows it up with a solid game against Seattle. He still missed some key throws, some throws he should have hit, but I'm certainly a bit higher on Trevor Lawrence than I was a couple weeks ago. Just a couple games to clean things up. Baltimore versus the Los Angeles Rams. This game was pretty much over before it started with all those injuries. 3 turnovers for Baltimore, but the Ravens couldn't stop this Rams offense forever. They ended up falling to 1-5, a brutal start to the year. Puka Nacua injured his foot. It looked pretty bad. But he ended up coming out of the locker room after halftime, I believe. He may not be good to go against Jacksonville overseas next week. We'll have to pay attention to his injury status. Then finally, Jets versus Broncos. The Jets looked terrible. There was a moment in this game where they had a 2-minute drill to end the half and just did not run a play for the last 30 seconds. It was the most insane sequence I've ever seen in my entire life. Garrett Wilson was furious with his head coach on the sideline afterwards. It was pretty clear. The worst part is this ended up being only a 2-point loss, so maybe a field goal would have won the game. Obviously, that would have been going into halftime, so still 2 quarters left. But the Broncos defense logs 9 sacks on Justin Fields as he has yet another terrible performance through the air against a good defense. 9 for 17 passing, 45 passing yards all day. No touchdowns, obviously. Stat of the day, the Broncos defense sacked Justin Fields as many times as he had a completion. 9 sacks, 9 completions. Head coach Aaron Glenn has not done a good job with this team so far. They are 0-6. If he doesn't put things together, I'm not the type of guy that worries for head coaches much after their first season, but he needs to start winning some football games. My prediction for the 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, I'm taking the Bills over the Falcons 30-24. Then very, very, very narrowly, I'll take the Commanders over the Bears 31-28. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms, and I'll see you in the next one.